Hey everyone, how you all doing? Welcome and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm doing my October wrap-up. So reading in October was really hard for me for some reason. I just could not bring myself to pick up a book, but I somehow managed to read 6 books in the month of October, so let's talk about them. So the first book I read, I actually listened to an audiobook, and it was Wildcard by Marie Lu. This is the sequel to Warcross, which I read a couple months ago. I don't think it was last month. When did I read Warcross? I have no idea. Anyways, I recently read Warcross, so I knew I needed to pick up the sequel. So if you don't know what Warcross is about, we basically follow our main character Amika, and she is a hacker, and one day she hacks herself into the championship game or something of Warcross, which is this big virtual reality game that everybody plays and is very in tune with. And she ends up hacking herself into the game, and everybody can see her when they weren't supposed to be able to. So she ends up getting a call from Hideo, who is the creator of Warcross. So she thinks that she is in trouble, but he flies her down to Tokyo, and he ends up actually hiring her to be his bounty hunter. And it's a really interesting book. I didn't think I was gonna like it because virtual reality video games is not really my thing, but I ended up really enjoying it. And so when I read the sequel, I was really excited. I have heard a lot of mixed things about this book. A lot of people didn't like it, just thought it wasn't as good as Warcross. I would have to agree. I definitely don't think it's as good as Warcross. I don't necessarily know why. I don't know if it's just the plot line of this book, or me personally. I love Hideo and Amika and their interactions, and we didn't get nearly as much of that in this book as we did in Warcross, but that was kind of expected with the way things went down in Warcross. I don't know what it is about Wildcard that just isn't as captivating as Warcross, but I still enjoyed it. I still had a good time listening to it. I do like the characters and the world. I loved how everything tied up in this book, how all the mysteries unraveled and everything like that, and I just think that it was really interesting. But overall, I did like Warcross just a little bit better than this one, but it was still enjoyable, and I'm glad that I finally read this duology. The second book that I read was another audiobook, and it was A Stranger Beside Me by Anne Rule. This is a non-fiction book, kind of all about Ted Bundy, but it's written by somebody who was his friend at the time. I can't remember exactly who she was. I did not know going into this audiobook that it was an abridged audiobook, but it was. So that just means it's not the full story, it's not the full book. They condensed it for the audiobook. I basically only picked this audiobook up because I was working on my bullet journal, and I didn't see a single other audiobook that I wanted to listen to that was available, and I saw that this one was, and I'm very intrigued by murderers and Ted Bundy specifically, so I wanted to listen to this. But I'm kind of disappointed that it was abridged because I feel like I didn't get all the information that I should have. I don't think I really gained anything from listening to this audiobook though. I don't think it gave me any information that I haven't already gotten from any documentary I've watched or the Ted Bundy movie with Zac Efron. I feel like I just didn't get any additional information, and if I did, I honestly don't remember it. So I feel like this one didn't really give me anything, you know. I didn't really gain any knowledge from this, but I mean, it was kind of interesting to hear about things from one of his friends. She was his friend during the time, and I think that's a little bit interesting. So it was interesting. I do wish that I was able to listen to the unabridged audiobook, but it is what it is. The next book I read was Blood Promise by Rochelle Mead. I also listened to the audiobook of this one for part of it. I picked this book up last month. This is a reread, by the way. I picked this book up last month, and I got I think around halfway through. I think I got up to chapter 15 if I'm not mistaken, and then I put it down because I didn't No, I picked this up in August, and then I put it down for September because it was on my Stranger Things readathon TBR, so that's what happened. And then I couldn't for some reason bring myself to pick it up physically, and so I saw that the audiobook was available. I've never listened to the audiobooks for the series before, so I didn't really know what to expect. And sometimes, for older books like this especially, or books like this in general, the audiobook narrator tends to be a little bit annoying. I think that's a safe thing to say, but I was actually kind of surprised. I don't mind the narrator for this book. I'm glad that I picked up the audiobook. My only complaint about the actual audiobook itself is there was sound effects in it, and that's a pet peeve of mine when there are sound effects in an audiobook. I come to expect them from middle grade books, but when it's in a young adult book, it kind of bothers me a little bit. I just don't think they're very necessary unless done well, I suppose. And I didn't mind most of the sound effects in this one, but there was music at certain points. I think it was mainly at chapter beginnings, if I'm remembering correctly, but it annoys me when they put music over the narrator speaking, because then it's just hard for me to hear what the narrator is saying, and I get distracted by the music because the music was loud. It was pretty much at the same volume as the narrator, so it was just kind of distracting, and I didn't really enjoy it. Besides that, it was a decent audiobook. It was decent enough. I felt like the narrator captured the voices relatively well. But this is the 4th book in the Vampire Academy series. If you don't know what this series is about, we're basically living in this world where there are different kinds of vampires. There are Moroi, who are the good vampires. They feed off of humans humans, but only enough to satisfy their hunger. They don't kill for their food, they just suck the blood from willing participants. Then we follow Strigoi, who can only be made, and they do feed and kill off of humans and off of other Moroi or whatever, and they are the bad vampires. And then we have the Dampirs, who are kind of the guardians of the Moroi, and they are half Moroi, half human. And it's a really interesting series. We follow our main character Rose, who is one of the Dampirs. She goes to this academy called St. Vladimir's, and it's where all the Moroi go, and it's where the Dampirs go to train to be guardians. And it's a really interesting series. I really enjoy it. It's like one of those trashy like paranormal YA books, and I love paranormal, so I really enjoy this series. And I haven't reread this book in years, and so I'm glad that I was finally able to read it and finish it and enjoy it. This one is one of the more like harder hitting ones and one of the more sad ones, because there's a lot of things going on from the aftermath of the third book, but I really enjoyed it, and I am excited to continue on with the final 2 books. The next book I read was I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. I picked this up on a whim. It was not on my TBR. I just looked at it on my shelf and it felt like it was calling to me, and so I picked it up. You know, I'm a mood reader, that's just how it works sometimes. But this is a book following 2 different perspectives. We follow our main character Angel, and she is a complete fangirl, completely obsessed with this band called The Ark. They are like the reason that she lives and breathes, and she's like just like their biggest fan. And she's spending her weekend kind of going to their concert, like wanting to meet the band, and kind of just like doing all things relating to The Ark. And then we also follow a member of The Ark. His name is Jimmy, and he is the front man of The Ark. And we kind of follow his experiences being in the band, kind of being overworked a little bit and being like a little bit stressed. I enjoyed this book, but it's not like a favorite by any means. I didn't think it was necessarily gonna be a favorite, but I was just kind of hoping to feel connected to the story and feel just really happy. I wanted to love this book, and I feel like I liked it. I don't know if I loved it though. My favorite part of this book was definitely the whole fandom representation. If you guys don't know, I'm a fangirl for One Direction, and a fangirl for a lot of things actually. I'm a very passionate and obsessive person when it comes to media and like music and things like that, but One Direction was like my main fandom for a long time, and like definitely like my main like musical fandom. And so being able to kind of connect to Angel on that level of being a fangirl, being that obsessed and passionate about a boy band, and feeling like that judgment coming from other people of being like, oh, you're just like a teenage girl, you're crazy, blah 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 blah, why does this boy band mean so much to you? I feel that on like a very personal level. So I really enjoyed connecting to that aspect of it. I also really enjoyed the dual perspectives we got in this book. I really enjoyed obviously seeing Angel's part and the fangirl part, but then we got Jimmy's perspective, and we got to see him being overworked in the band and seeing all the stress that comes with being famous and a celebrity, and how much it kind of like takes away from your freedom and your life, and how everything kind of changes. And I really enjoyed seeing that. I think it just really showed how being a fan and our perception of something can be so different from the truth and what the band is actually going through. And I don't know, I found that really interesting, and kind of seeing Angel come to terms with that and kind of finding out the truth, and kind of like her picture perfect image of the band kind of shattering. I really enjoyed that aspect of the book, and that's something that I wasn't necessarily thinking about going into this book and didn't think I was going to be getting, but I think it was like definitely like my favorite part of this book. Yeah, I enjoyed this book. I'm glad that I read it, but it's not a favorite or anything. The next book I read I don't want to talk about for too long, because it is a reread and I just don't want to talk about it, but it is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks. This is a graphic novel taking place on Halloween while our main characters are kind of experiencing their last day working at this pumpkin patch that they've worked at for the past few years. This is just a really fun fall Halloweeny graphic novel, and it always gets me in the mood for the season, and I really enjoy that. I also just like really love the art style and like the coloring of everything. It's just so beautiful, you know, and I really enjoy that. And art style obviously is so important when it comes to graphic novels, and this is one of my favorites that I've ever read art style wise, and so I really enjoyed it. It's like a yearly reread at this point. I had a good time. The last book that I read in October was my favorite of the month, and it was Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is a book that everybody has been talking about. It was a New York Times bestseller. I really enjoyed this book. But if you don't know what this book is about, we basically follow our main character Yadriel, but his family has a little bit of trouble accepting his gender. He is a transgender male. His family is having a little bit of trouble accepting his gender when it comes to their culture and everything like that, and he is determined to prove himself to be a real brujo when his family doesn't really think that he is capable of being that, doesn't think that the Lady Death will accept him in that way. So he ends up doing his kinsey by himself in order to prove to his family that he is a real brujo, and then he tries to summon the murdered ghost of his cousin Miguel to try to set him free, but he ends up summoning the wrong ghost, and he has to kind of fix his mistake. It's such a good book. I loved it a lot. I loved the characters. I loved the whole premise of this book. Like just the idea of summoning a ghost and it's the wrong ghost is so interesting to me, and I loved Julian. He's the ghost. Loved him a whole lot. Julian and Yadriel were definitely my favorite parts of this book. I loved their interactions with each other. I loved Julian a lot, and I just really loved the the setting of this book. A lot of this book takes place like in a cemetery, and it's a really good book. I definitely recommend it. And then the ending of this book was so intense. I like tweeted about it and put it on my Instagram story, I think, but it was so intense. Like the last like 40-60 pages of this book had me so stressed out. I had my face scrunched up from concentration, from the stress of it all, and by the end of it my face and my head hurt from all of like the pressure that I was putting on it because I was so stressed out about what was going to happen. I really enjoyed kind of like the whole mystery element going into it about like who murdered Miguel and everything like that. I can definitely see why this book was on the New York Times list. I can definitely see why everybody has been talking about it. It is just so good, so well done. I really like the writing. I loved everything about this book, honestly. I don't really think I have many complaints. So if you have not yet checked this book out, definitely do because it was excellent. It was really good. Okay, so those are all the books that I read in the month of October. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a huge thumbs up. Comment down below what you guys read in the month of October, and also if you stay till the very end of the video, comment a ghost emoji. Subscribe if you have not yet already, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!